Hi there, it's Jim Montgomery here to do another interview with the author, and today I'm speaking to Samantha J Wright. So Sam, tell us, what prompted you to start writing?
Well, I think it was dissatisfaction with what was already out there. I've always enjoyed reading, but trying to find something that really would grab your interest has become harder and harder. A lot of books that are aimed at women, I find them very stereotyped. I hate walking into a bookshop and seeing row after row of very similar books, and I just think that that imbalance maybe needs addressed, and more writers are starting to do that, so that's good, and I'm jumping on the bandwagon.
Good. So what would be your criteria for a good book then?
Well, a good book would need to interest you enough so that after you finish reading it, or after you've gone away from reading it for a little while, you're still thinking about it. So really it has to make a connection with you, not just intellectually but emotionally, for me anyway. So it would need to educate, excite, and also elicit an emotional response so that you can go from the start of reading it to the end and still be interested.
Speaking of which, I see your first book is in the genre of historical fiction. Is that your main area of interest, or do you see yourself branching out into other genres?
Well, I am fascinated with history and historical fiction, and my second book that I'm writing is also historical fiction. And I also have a third outlined, which I haven't started work on properly yet. But my first love has always been sci-fi, which is a bit of an odd mix, I know, but there it is. I just think that sci-fi, it has such enormous scope for what you can do with it. You can make really huge leaps of imagination, you're not so constrained by ideas. So I just like that, kind of draws me in.
You mentioned that your first love has always been sci-fi. You know, what are some of your favourite areas there, or other genres perhaps?
Well, first on the list would have to be Arthur C. Clarke. I really enjoy his books. I've read the majority of them, particularly the Rama trilogy. They were what really drew me into sci-fi in the first place. Isaac Asimov, I enjoy his books, Caves of Steel in particular. Philip K. Dick, his books are very good, particularly the Blade Runner series. And also, maybe you've seen The Minority Report, that's a book that's been put into a film, so that's a really good book. Aside from sci-fi, I would enjoy Michael Crichton's books, John Steinbeck. His books are a little bit dark, which I enjoy. Cormac McCarthy, Charles Dickens, Khalid Hosseini, The Kite Runner, he wrote. So I enjoy all those kinds of books, and I think it's because they tend to really grab your interest and they connect with you emotionally, which is what I like in a book.
Okay. Is there anything that particularly qualifies you as a writer?
That's a tricky one. I think mainly I want people to see things through my eyes, and that when a person writes a book, you're not necessarily reading something that's sprung from their intellect or their education. When a person writes, I think it comes from more or less their experiences in life, what their views are on things, their personality, things like that. So I just think that when you're reading that each person who's writing has the potential to bring something new. And I think that's quite refreshing, and it's also a good thing for new writers to focus on, that they have the potential to write something maybe that's already been covered before, but they can do it from a different perspective, make it their own.
So where do you find all your inspiration?
Well, many writers probably would say the same thing, that particularly with their characters, that they're perhaps people that they've already been acquainted with, that they know in their own lives. And that would be the same with me. Sometimes you're lucky enough to get a person in your life who's colourful enough without embellishing it or using your imagination too much, but sometimes you have to fill in the gaps, which is one of the things that I do. And also history would be a big influence with me, and also nature. I think that comes through probably with my first book, The Sands of Carthage, that right from the outset you can see that, you know, nature is a big thing with me. I feel that it can almost by itself describe a scene or an emotion that you're trying to convey. So those are very important for me.
Have you always had an interest in history?
I have to say no, because whenever I was at school, history, I just fell asleep. It was not really something that interested me, but when I was 17 I moved to Ireland, and I think living in a country that has such rich history and culture that you can't really ignore that. Wherever you go there's reminders of the history, and I just think that that has really drawn me in. You go out for a drive in the countryside and you can see all kinds of historical monuments, burial grounds, monuments, forts, castles. So those kind of things, they really sort of spark the imagination, I feel. They take you down that route of thinking, well, what happened here? How did these people live? How did they reach this particular point in history? Also with family history research that I've been doing for the last 8 years, that's really sort of sparked my imagination with history, looking into my ancestors, maybe finding out what kind of work they did, the kind of lives they lived. That's really been a motivation that way.
So your family are not from Ireland then?
No, well some of them are. I'm actually English, and quite a large number of my family would be English, and then there's Scots in my family, Welsh and Irish.
So what are your plans for the future?
Lots more writing. I really enjoy writing, and that's really important for me, to be able to enjoy writing. As I said, I've already written one book which is already out there. I'm working on a sequel, so I'm halfway through that now. And I have a third outlined, which is, it's actually set further back in the past, which means that obviously it's maybe a little bit grittier, with battle scenes and such planned, penciled in. And obviously I would really love to write a sci-fi, so that's on my to-do list. So I'm going to be busy.
And to finish off, do you have any advice for aspiring authors?
Well, as I said before, I think it's really important to enjoy your writing. I think that really helps when you receive maybe disappointments or refusals. Obviously with the submission process, you know, that's going to happen. You have to resign yourself to that fact. But when it does happen, just focus on the fact that you enjoy writing, and also maybe use what constructive criticism you do receive and sort of turn it around and use it as a spur to change your work maybe, and change it for the better and to improve it. So I think that's a really useful thing to do. And also myself, whenever I was submitting my manuscript, I received a reply back from a publisher, and he actually said to me, well, maybe I was jumping in at the deep end, writing a novel when I'd no literary experience. So that could have been a crushing sort of comment, and I did kind of take it to heart a little bit. But then after a while I thought, well, you know, that could be a challenge for me really, you know, prove him wrong. So I tried and I did. So I think that that's really important, to be able to take criticism and just sort of run with it, and to, if you do fail, pick yourself up and try again. Good.
Okay, well, no doubt we'll see you back again at David James Publishing with your next novel.
Let's hope so.